Jamaica Gasoline Retailers Association. As members can recall, sometime earlier this year, I believe it was in February, the committee took a decision to invite the Gasoline Retailers Association here. I think the request came as a result of an incident, I believe, that had transpired in Manchester. And arising out of that, I believe somebody would have died. And the committee, having heard the circumstances of that incident, felt that it was very important for the Gasoline Retailers Association to be here. So they are now here with us today, but apart from that, we would have received written correspondence dated July 23rd, 2020. I trust by these members would have had an opportunity to review same. So we want to welcome you to this, our Joint Select Committee, duly constituted to consider the Occupational Safety and Health Bill. This is a bill that has been laid before the Parliament for some time now, and the bill is currently being examined by a select committee comprising of members of both houses of Parliament. The bill primarily focuses on rolling out of a new regime that will govern workplace safety and health. Our letter was very clear, and I will turn over to you. But before you get into the specifics of your reply to our letter, I would ask that you introduce. Mr. Chong, you are the president of the JGRA, so I will turn over to you unless you, there is somebody else who will be speaking on behalf of your group. I ask that you introduce the members of your team to this committee.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Chairman. So thank you for having us today, and it's a pleasure for us to be here with you. I'd like to introduce my team here with me today. I'm Gregory Chung, President of the Jamaica Gasoline Retailers Association. And with me to my left, I have Mr. Eddie Edwards, our Negotiations Chair and past President. To my right, immediate behind me, I have Philip Chung, our immediate past President. And to the left, I have Ms. Diane Param, First Vice President. And finally, right behind Diane, you have Mr. Derek Thompson. He's a Second Vice President and past President. So we have the whole JGRA negotiation team here to answer and speak about our industry. As stated in the letter, upon reviewing the Occupational Health and Safety Act, we are not in a position to speak to the Act itself, but we're here to speak to anything to do with health and safety of our employees, which is of utmost importance in our industry. Over to you, Chairman.
Very well. The letter, your reply, you made reference to guidelines in respect of the operation of gas stations. And in terms of, because based on the nature of your operation, safety and health has to be a primary concern. In respect of safety and health, Mr. Chung, could you advise us what governs your organization in terms of safety and health, whether they're, yes, what governs safety and health in respect of your organization?
All right. I will take that one,
Yeah, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman. There are established guidelines relating to safety and health, which take into consideration everyone who enters the premises. We have operated for many years in a very safe environment, and we are aware of what happened earlier this year in Mandeville. And of course, it would have drawn into sharp focus on everyone. It's an incident that we saw the 20 or 30-second clip on social media, and it is a very good reminder, as unfortunate an incident that it was. But in the service station industry, we have established, this is a manual which has to deal with health and safety, and it starts from the very first day of employment of an employee. In the orientation that they would go through from day one, it deals with emergency contact numbers. In other words, we establish who is supposed, everybody has a function, every single person on the forecourt and in the office, who is on duty each day, and that is established and placed in an area that everyone can see. If an emergency happens, all the pump attendants should be running for the same extinguisher. There is one person that is designated to lift that extinguisher. There is one who will make alarm, the other one that will alert the supervisor to take action in terms of calling the fire department, the police, the manager, and so on. So it is well set out. It's a straightforward format, and it even deals in a very detailed way with incidents such as robbery and how to deal with incidents inside the building, not just forecourt incidents. It has to detail, this manual that you have here, that is called a service station manual. Pardon me? It's quite voluminous. It is something that it deals with the ABC of service station operation, but it deals extensively with safety and the areas that must be adhered to.
Chairman, my question is how many pages? I see you not answering that.
Yes, and
It's about 300 pages.
so are all employees to a service station provided with a copy of that manual?
No,
Okay.
not a copy of the manual, because the manual deals, what you would do from this is, this is where you would develop your on-the-job training,
Okay.
because he comes in on day one. In taking him around in your walk-around inspection, there are areas where you have kill switch that will kill all power to forecourt activity. He must, and it must be in an accessible area.
So the
So
manual
he would
deals-
know in the case, sorry, Chair. You go ahead.
No, I'm asking you if the manual deals with things other than safety and health.
Yes,
So it's a workplace manual, but
Yes.
there's a section that deals with safety and health.
indeed.
Okay, fine. In terms of your association, how many members comprise your association?
Approximately 360.
360 and on, and are all gasoline retailers members of your association?
No, they are independent. In other words, it is not compulsory that any person who operates, because there are persons, including marketing companies, who own and operate their sites.
Could I just clarify your question? How many service stations, including and excluding members of the JGRA, exist in the country? You have a sense of that?
Yeah, yeah.
340 members?
No gas station.
Okay. So you're saying that you have more than 100 service, let me call them gasoline retailers that are not members of the association. Okay.
While, may I, Mr. Chair? While they are not members, they are not persons who complete a membership application and sign to the various things, they still benefit from everything that we do in terms of work that we would have done in the industry. We still make those things accessible to them. In other words, if we have training for employees within the sector, we would not prevent them from coming. They would, if it has a fee, they would pay the fee and they would attend the training. So they would benefit from areas that we deem important for employees.
Sorry, Chair. I would want to understand and appreciate the role and function of the JGRA. Just briefly, just if you could outline for me the role and the function of the JGRA. Once I understand that I can begin to, appreciate more in terms of what you do and the objectives and mandate that you are expected to achieve.
All right. The JGRA is a registered trade union. And to answer your question, I have to kind of expand a little for you to understand the issue.
To expand.
Yes. Most of the stations in the early years were owned by multinational marketing companies. And the retailers were of the opinion that they were not getting very good contracts from these marketing companies. So therefore, the JGRA would be asked to carry out negotiations with the multinational marketing companies on behalf of the retailers towards achieving better terms of contract. And so the JGRA, while operating as a trade union, try to create harmony and real balance within the industry through dialogue with the multinational marketing companies. Over the years, that has changed somewhat, and locals are getting into the retail industry. And some of the locals still remain members because they are members who were still under the multinational contracts, and it mushroomed to where we are. But by and large, as Mr. Thompson alluded earlier, that it is about 60% of bona fide membership that we have. But we still maintain close and very good relationship as retailers. So broadly, what we do, we operate as a trade union. We negotiate for better terms with marketing companies, suppliers of goods and services, and with employers. Whichever union we sit down and we as JGRA negotiate wages for the employees within the industries. And that wages here is where persons who are not members still benefit from it because they still stick by the established rates that we have.
So, Chair, for you, am I to
Yes.
also assume that the JGRA in its remit observes and also seek to protect its members against unfair or unreasonable safety conditions?
Yes.
Is the JGRA just limited to gas stations? Because you spoke of the marketing companies in terms of your interface. But I also know that the marketing companies also treat with, for instance, the LPG industry. Is your, by extension, your support goes to the LPG industries also?
No, it does not.
Oh, so who inspects or regulates that industry?
I think that would definitely come under agency, like it would come from energy, the Bureau of Standards, Fire Department,
Oh, okay.
and those agencies.
Yes, Member Skeffrey.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just a couple of questions. In terms of, is there a safety and health policy that sets a standard across all service stations?
Yes, there is.
And that's separate, that's not a subset of the manual, but a separate document that all stations should have? I would have?
Yes.
Okay. Secondly, is it mandatory for all service stations to have a safety officer that to ensure that policy is being followed to a T?
Yes, and that is under. It is part of the contract for persons who operate under the multinationals. It is part of the contract that you sign, and it is inspected from time to time during various forms of evaluation.
Okay, another one. Is there an independent body that assesses your stations to ensure that they are complying to this minimum standard? Because I know you're an association and you might assess yourself, but which independent body does the verification?
All right. There are personnel from the Ministry of Health that will do the Works Agency, the Fire Department, the Ministry of Energy on a regular basis, the Bureau of Standards, and that can be prompted by a complaint from a customer, from a consumer.
But they can also be proactive and do so on their own initiative.
Yeah, routinely they come and do it.
That's a final one for me. You spoke about training. Is there a specific period for the orientation of staff, new staff first when they're recruited, before they actually start the job?
Yes, there is an orientation period. The person who starts would mainly start with on-the-job training after the supervisor or the manager gives the orientation. After the person is confirmed, he will go through a period of orientation, working alongside a senior person, not responsible for cash, not responsible for a pump by his or herself. So he would be working with what is called a chief
So what's a
customer
normal
service rep.
What's a normal period, minimum period?
I would say about 6 to 8 weeks, but it is dependent on the progress that the person demonstrate during that period.
And the final one then how do you have a formal assessment to determine competence of this employee to be now left, quote unquote, on his or her own as a full employee?
Yes.
And I mean, and I've been specifically around safety issues.
Yes,
Not the collecting the cash, but safety.
yes.
So it's a formal assessment that
There's a
determines
formal,
competence?
yes sir, there's a formal assessment that would be done, carried out, and that is where you would decide whether you would terminate before the 90 days period or you would continue with them
And this is done by
by the management.
by the management of that service station?
That is correct.
Okay, so that's within the general probation period?
That is correct.
Okay.
Just to add, Mr. Chair, through you, that the
Yes.
annual licensing process that we go through, you have to get a fire certification, you have to get the NWA, so there are a number of bodies that we have to go through to be certified every year in order to get your retail license to continue to operate.
Yes.
Let me start there, Chairman. I also thank you all for coming because we believe we'll benefit from your presence. There are 6 agencies you outlined that you need that monitor you. Fire Brigade, Bureau of Standards, National Works Agency, Health and Energy, and the Ministry of Labor. Could I ask you what's the experience with the Ministry of Labor part of the investigation or the monitoring?
Yeah. The Ministry of Labor comes on an annual basis because the certificate that and the license that you pay is for 1 year. They would ensure that the mechanical aspect of it in terms of if you have a compressor, that it has the proper covering where the belts and the wheels are turning. They care about areas like lunchroom, change room facilities, and to ensure that everything is in order.
You're satisfied with the nature of the Ministry of Labor's inspection?
Indeed, indeed.
Any problem you have ever had with the ministry being intrusive or demanding too much?
It's not a problem. It is something that helps us to keep us on our toes, to ensure that you are going through an annual inspection, and these things must be in place for them to come and tick off and to say that it's okay.
Is there a set period when they must visit any particular service station?
It is an annual inspection, but as to the time, they would call on you for the annual because it expires March each year.
So they would give you a heads up that we're coming on Wednesday or we're coming on.
Yes.
And let me just ask some other questions. You indicate that there are about 340 service stations. Could you give us a sense of how many people are employed by your sector? And that's 4,000 direct employment. Huh?
Mike, Try the one closest to you. To the other side, yes.
Yes, sir. I'm saying that the indirect component may be in the region of 2,000.
Just to understand, what do you mean in your reference to indirect, as opposed to a direct employee?
So we have people who we employ directly to the stations, and we have people who, for want of a better word, they casual labor, you know, small contract here and there. Directly, direct. Your pump attendant should be direct.
We're told that of the 340 service stations, that about 290, 292 are on the annual reports to the Ministry of Labor. Are those, well, is that so? You have a sense as to why some would not be on the reporting to the Ministry of Labor?
Well, it is part of our constant reminder to our members about making a full disclosure of things like this. But there are still persons out there who are not members of the association and would not fall fully under our guidelines.
Yeah. Your safety manual,
Yes,
300 pages,
yes. It's
probably qualify if you go through it for a master's degree. How do you instill that to the workforce?
It is a part of daily routine through management. In other words, the managers have to insist on the supervisors, and the supervisors who have to constantly ensure that it is done. In other words, with the new paradigm in terms of the wearing the face mask and sanitizing, it is something, and after a while it becomes normal routine. But the insistence has to be there because of the importance of it by management.
My colleague asked, how do you measure success? Have you had cases of accidents arising and people getting injured because they have not followed the instructions of the manual?
I am thinking as you ask, but in industry, we have never seen anything in the many years of operation to the magnitude of the recent fire in Manchester. And we might have incidents where they are serving and maybe checking the bonnet, and then when they close the bonnet and go around, a driver drives off with the hose in the tank or something and it disconnects. But that is a small spill, and then you're trained how to deal with that and what measures to employ to alleviate. But
So you are satisfied that the industry, as it is now, are meeting the safety requirements as they exist now?
yes, for the most part, and based on the years of success that we have had, it tells us that we are doing something right, most things right.
And the new bill that you have not yet had a chance to study in terms of this legal thing, which is likely to be different from the Factories Act that now governs you, are you concerned in any way about any of the provisions that it may likely contain that would be a drag on your business?
Member Brown, I think they have indicated though in their letter while they consult that they are not comfortable with the language they use. Yes, yes, yes.
Mr. Chairman, may I say that the gasoline industry has operated for well over 100 years. In fact, one marketing company is celebrating, I think 2 years ago, 100 years in the business. And the JGRA has been in existence this year for 70 years. And we've not had any major accidents or incidents outside the one in Mandeville. So we could consider ourselves fairly successful in that regard, and what we're doing, improving every year, and what we do when we have our general conference and we do our visits, annual visits around the country and all that. So it is safe to say that if there is a new act which will help us to make the industry better, we're all for it, you know, and certainly give more record or track record of safety in the industry. We can say that, yeah, we can build on it, right? So that's where we are. I suppose there are some legal jargons in the Act itself that we're not comfortable with at this time, and perhaps we'll like to seek legal guidance on them, which is what we responded the way we have.
There's a follow-up. There's a follow-up.
Oh, yes, Mr. Chong.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I would just like to highlight some things that is happening in the industry, aside from this bill that's not covered, and the association is aware of a new trend, and this trend is very concerning, and I would say it's an imminent threat to the safety of the public. And this is mobile gas stations. They are entrepreneurial spirit of our country. They have found a way to circumvent all the different regulatory agencies that we listed, that we report to, and they're moving around. You guys must have seen them around town. There are miniature tankers that has retrofitted pumps, meter on it, and they will literally go any and everywhere and retail fuel, and it's taken off island-wide. We have addressed it, brought it to the attention of our energy of MSTEM, and we will continue to advocate to look for ways to make it safe or put an end to it, because not only is it taking away business from our members, but it is a clear fire hazard, and the illegal trade is very much there also, and it has taken many forms. And we consider we're not even sure what premises these companies are operating under, because MSTEM claims that they have not issued any kind of license for this industry, and it is taken footing. In fact, for the last few years, it has been mostly diesel fuel that they've been selling, and as you all know, diesel has a lower flash point, but of recently it has moved to 90 unleaded, and everyone here knows the danger of 90, and they don't have any safeguards in place. So we just like to highlight this to the committee.
So, Mr. Chong.
Clarification.
Yes.
Just a clarification. So, Mr. Chong, these are not your members trying to be innovative in any way, shape, or form?
No, we would never allow that.
And insofar as you're concerned, Mr. Chong, these are illegal operations.
we cannot see it fit that we as gas station operators comply with so many safety standards, and people would be allowed to go out there in the street and retail fuel and put the public at risk in this fashion. There's no possible way, and I don't know which loophole they have found a way to go under, but it needs to be closed.
But insofar as you're concerned, they would not have obtained the relevant license from the agencies you would have quoted here.
Yeah, I can't really speak to it, but I don't see how it's possible.
So, I must confess, I've never seen them. But I would want to know, how are they identifiable? They have a marketing sign on these, brand themselves or anything like that. I just want to know what to look for. If it's a particular color, shape, or anything of that nature. I've never seen them.
It is,
But now that you raise it, I would like to look out for them so that I can drive past them.
And a follow-up question, they will get their source from Petroja or one of the marketing dealer? No, I suppose that's news to me.
yeah.
And if that's so, I can see the real danger in it. But who supply them?
It looks like the old-time kerosene trucks. Those trucks that used to go around and sell kerosene. So it has the fitting with the digits that roll and show you the amount of the volume and the cost of whatever you
That might be
purchase.
a little too old for my time.
Black market. All right.
Oh, yes. I just wanted to add that most of these regulatory bodies are geared to checking on fixed assets and a permanent address. And what we're finding out, as stated by our president, that it has been duly noted for at least the last 3 years that we have what you call so-called peddlers peddling high-octane gasoline. It's strange. It is a very strange development. It's a very unsafe development, very hazardous. Two of the factors that Mr. Edwards did not point out in his manual is that they're within the health and safety section of the manual. It covers the characteristic of each product that we sell. You know, what will happen if it gets on your hand, and if you ingest it, things like that. It is covered, and what you should duly act on if this is done. For example, if there was a spillage on the site and it affected a customer, what do we do? If it affected an employee, what do we do? And we have toolbox meetings on a regular basis with the staff just to let them know what actions are to be done.
All of this was developed with international standards at work. And could you also tell me, Mr. Gregory Chong, these mobile gas stations, are they operable to the best of your knowledge in other countries?
Not that I know of, not in this fashion, where, as I said, they are literally pulling over on the roadside at a particular time of the day, and you have several vehicles meeting them. Obviously, they don't have the overheads like a gas station, and what they'll do, they'll use the price advantage to pull customers away. And our naive motorists sometimes take the price at the risk of their own health and not realizing what they're doing.
Let me just add to that, please. Right? All right. Apart from service stations that dispense fuel to motorists, we have consumer sites like hotels. If you have a large fleet, back in the days, you'd have a tank there. And these vehicles, these tankers, would take from source to these points and literally sell it to them. Very a simple operation that has existed for years. What is happening is that they're diversing their activities and actually peddling on the street. Right? So it is that simple, but that dangerous.
Yeah. I want to come back to this, but I'd ask a question about your manual, whether it was modeled by off international standard, and secondly, have there been any coordination or cooperation with the Ministry of Health in developing the manual?
Yeah, you're going to answer.
Yeah, it is modeled of an international standard.
In terms of workplace accidents, is there any duty on members to report incidents of workplace accidents?
Yes, indeed. Every incident, whether it's a near miss or it's an actual accident, it is reported and logged.
Yes. When you say reported to who?
Well, it is not reported. It is reported to the marketing companies that you have a contract with.
So that's like the parent company?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So in terms of the workplace accidents, do you have like information? Now when I say workplace accidents, rightly include near misses, incidents in which persons may have sustained injuries, and also incidents in which persons may have died. Do you have any data here with you that could advise the committee across your membership over the last 3 years, per se? Because I know you boast of the standard with which you operate. What are the numbers like over the last 3 years in terms of workplace accident among your membership?
We don't have that information here. We don't have. The truth is that when accidents or incidents take place at a workplace, it would be reported through insurance, and because we have insurance coverage which deals with loss of income for the employees. We have to have health insurance, public liability.
But the fact that the accident happened,
Yes.
where is it recorded?
As we tell you, we don't have any system of reporting it to the Ministry of Labor.
Sorry,
It's recorded
Just to clarify, the National Insurance Scheme, you don't report to the National Insurance Scheme?
for incidents. No.
So if there's an accident, a worker got injured on the job, there'll be no report to the NIS, you're saying?
No. It would go to the insurance company who has a duty to compensate for loss of income.
For the record, that's a private insurance company.
Yes.
Member Gill, yes.
Chair, I want to deal with the question of prevention. And as a customer, if I drive up to a gas station to be served by a pump attendant, I want to be satisfied that that pump attendant is fully aware of certain standards. Mr. Edwards, I believe you made reference to taking them through a checklist of some sort. But how can we be satisfied and secured that each one of those employees would have gone through that operational standard in terms of their orientation? Is there a domain that each of your members would have to report to ensure that every employee that they take on would have gone through those standards?
Yeah.
It's in some other areas they might see it as a certification. You might not have it at that level.
Yes.
But just to remove the doubt that you employ somebody and they are just thrown in the depths of, yeah man, go serve the gas. You take off the hose and you just insert it in the thing and you pump gas and that's it. But in terms of certain standards, is there a requirement for them to at least be fully aware of certain minimum standards or requirement?
May I answer? So, at the moment, no. But what has happened over the last couple of years, we've been meeting with HEART. This year only, the UTEC has designed a program for all pump attendants island-wide. We're having discussion currently about certification. We've had it in the past with HEART, never happened. We had it this year and we're continuing to have it with UTEC. They've designed a program to certify all pump attendants.
Mike, yes.
Derek Thompson.
Oh.
Derek Thompson. So, as I say, we just got a proposal from UTEC about certification of all pump attendants island-wide. So, we're having dialogue with UTEC, and it's something that we may see very soon.
So the fact that you have been, operating for so many decades, and the world is changing, this would be an area that you would want to recommend for improvement.
Most certainly. In fact, it's a need that we've seen for the last 10 years. And like I said, we've been talking to HEART. HEART has approached us on occasions. We've had dialogue. For some strange reason, we've never had it, but UTEC seemed a little more serious this time.
I would want to suggest that I believe, and this is again against the preventative side, for it to be a requirement that at least we can ensure that all attendants are supposed to go through some level of matriculation before they are exposed to service in this nature.
Despite the high turnover rate,
well, I know that's one of your challenges, but that's a different issue, is what you pay and how you treat workers that creates high turnover rate. But, and you might need those workers might need some support. But this is purely now on the side of caution to the fact that irrespective of the turnover rate, somebody might not want to stay because they have alternative options. But in terms of a procedure, of a requirement to say that before you are certified to be exposed to serving that customer, you must go through this type of basic training.
Yes.
To ensure that you meet the requirements.
Yeah, the point is taken, sir, and it's just to formalize it. And I agree with you because it is important, because it is something that we do, and it would be stupid of an operator to get people who is going to create problem for the customers. So it is done, but it is not formalized, and I take your point that it should be formalized.
Why I would want to formalize it through you, Chair, is that, you may indicate that it's something that we do, but not all of us do it. And based on experience, some may not want to do it, but I would want to suggest that it ought to be a standard requirement in the scheme of things.
Member Skeffrey, you have a question? Yes, on the matter of personal protective equipment. Mr. Chung, is there a standard within your organization that all workers are equipped with personal protective gears?
Correct. The JGRA is following the Ministry of Health guidelines very closely and adding layers on it. But at a minimum, we adhere to all the Ministry of Health guidelines when you're speaking to COVID. We acknowledge that our employees are on the front line and serving our customers, and the throughput, they are at risk without the PPE. So this is something that our members practice, and we will continue to have them refresh refresh the employees with the relevant changes, because as you have seen, the situation is not finished yet.
Yeah, but you're just talking about COVID.
You said PPEs.
Yes, so generally,
Yes.
in regards to the nature of the industry, COVID came about in March. So we're talking about the ordinary everyday worker, perhaps like a pump attendant. Is there any requirement that such an attendant be fitted with personal protective gears? Yes. And if so, what are those gears? There's a follow-up question, but I will just take those two.
I'm going to let Eddie take this one.
Yes, Mr. Chair. We at the JGRA fight a long and hard battle with the marketing companies to have fitted on these nozzles the area to keep the fume from coming back at the pump attendants, to ensure that that is done. So they have the caps that cover fully the tank, and the fumes doesn't come back at them to affect them. In the area of washing, we ensure that where washing is taking place.
Yeah. What I'm talking about, sir, is things like safety shoes.
All right.
Are workers given safety boots? And if so, who pays for it?
Yes. In the area of washing, they are given water boots. The safety shoes, we give uniform, which include a cap, a shirt, and a pants. The shoes, it would be the expense of the employee.
So they can buy any shoe and report to you that it's a safety shoe, and they are allowed to work in it?
There are standards with that. The shoes must be a lace close to.
Okay. And where would they so you send them to where exactly they can procure that shoe?
That is correct. And in some cases, the employer purchase the shoes and will do deductions for it.
Okay.
But the uniforms are provided.
Yes, so I just want to bring to your attention, though, sir, that under this new bill, the employer will be prohibited. One, it is a duty to provide the safety equipment, the PPEs, and two, it is at a cost to be borne by the employer. So this thing about the worker providing the safety gears, or if the employer provides it, then the worker pays for it through deductions. This bill is saying that's a no-no.
We are guided by the law, Chair.
Mr. Chair, I just want to go back to the point about the record keeping for incidents at the workplace. I was a bit surprised to hear that there is not a centralized data. So I just want to probably suggest that in the future that there is a mechanism in place to capture these incidents. While I know a particular management team will do so, or may do so, but as a central body, because critical not just to make profit but to ensure safety. And you can all understand why that is so critical in an industry like this. So sometimes, so even in the training, you can look at what caused accident A against B, and then you also help to share best practices among the industry for standardized things. So you can always also measure your success rate, because you want to eliminate as best as possible, if not go to zero. So if you don't have the records at a central point, you're not able to compare what is happening with safety and health in year 1 against year 2. So I think it's critical as an association that you encourage your members to log the incident and send it to a central body so you can have it. And the technology is here to easily store, so paper-based doesn't have to be a bother again. So it's important we have that data.
Chair, may I say though that
Yes.
there exist about 21 marketing companies, and each of those marketing companies record their incidents, and I think they have the record. The difficulty with the JGRA is to get some of these information from them, because sometimes they're not members, right? And so collating that, the data might be difficult to that. So where our members have those issues, then yes, we could get, but
and I can appreciate that. Start with those that you can regulate in your own policies and guidelines.
And it also means, just to follow up from the question from Member Griffith, that you really have no accurate data as to the incidents, the workplace incidents that may take place within the gasoline retail trade.
in terms of collated incidents, no,
Yes.
but certainly once there are incidents that we usually hear or know about them, because we have people in all stations all about. So we hear about the incidents, whether or not they're, and if they're big enough, clearly, to make an impact, we're going to know about them.
21 marketing companies. Does the Ministry of Labour, Mr. Mahon, have a relationship with these marketing companies that would allow us to receive the information, and whether the discussion we had about getting relevant information, data, as part of the role of the new authority, would that allow us to get from the marketing company, even if we need to compel it?
Well, in terms of what is set out in this bill, it places the obligation on the person conducting the business or undertaking it. It does not necessarily place the obligation on a marketing company. So this is something that we can say in terms of law that we can force them to, but I mean, it is something that we can have conversations with them, because they also would have an interest to ensure that their retailers are operating in a safe and healthy environment. Just as how for the ones that fall within our remit, they at many a times request that these retailers have a valid certificate of registration to show that the ministry is there and conducting its safety and health inspections.
Or approach a person conducting business, goes from contractor to main contractor and so forth. Would the marketing companies who have gotten away with, and let me say it loudly, so the whole world will know, because I'm not happy with how the marketing companies have treated the JGRA over time. But would our approach to connecting the contractors right to the end as PCBU, person conducting business undertaking, would that allow us to capture and to bring in the marketing companies? Because I would not want a law to be passed which let them off the hook in terms of something like safety, when they have the data that could help us, data that the JGRA, for example, does not have, but may know of anecdotally.
Well, we would get that information from them, because they, even though they are not operating within the association and they have their stations, we would get the data from them, because the bill would, the act would place an obligation on them as well to provide us with the accident information. not just for the retail, but also for them as a marketing company and their employees.
We have been assured that the act will bring them in along the line, but I'd love to come back to the mobile gas operators.
Well, I think, Member Brown, what I am picking up from what Mr. Chung is saying is that they're almost certain that these operations are illegal. And if so, then I don't know the extent of the deliberations we'd want to have here.
Well, maybe if you indulge me, Chairman.
Yes.
You are aware of this, because I am sure I saw an advertisement saying things, so it's not unfamiliar to me. Have you reported it formally to the Ministry of Energy? I need it on the mic. I need it on the mic.
Yes.
Yes, that is true. They are aware of the situation.
My question is if JGRA have reported to them, because that's where I want to start.
JGRA has reported to them.
Have you had a response from them in respect to this?
All right, this is not new, but what I'm saying is that it has... No, we haven't had a response. But what I'm saying is that it has taken a dangerous turn where diesel was the main product being sold, and diesel doesn't have the flash point like 90. Now 90 is being peddled, and this is where we said enough is enough. Something needs to be done.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you have not had a response to this report about illegality in the trade from the Ministry of Energy?
It's a recent report.
Sir?
It's a recent report, but we have spoken to the ministry in the past regarding the peddling of these small trucks.
I believe it was Mr. Edwards who made the point that the brief social media clip of the accident, of the incident in Mandeville, indicate that it doesn't need a long time for an accident to occur. So even if it was yesterday the report was made, it just takes 20 seconds or less for a major incident that is preventable if action is taken against these illegal traders, that we could save the life of a school child, or the pastor who may save my life from the sins I've lived. So, but that's an important pastor.
Yes.
Right? So, in other words, something needs to be done. And Chairman, I really want to call upon, because we have a committee dealing with safety,
Yes.
to call on the Ministry of Labor
Yes.
to find out if there is a report to Energy and what is being done about it, because all our work may be in vain. I still have memories of the Villa Road.
You said
incident.
labor. Is it labor you really wanted to say?
Because
Okay.
here, Labour sits in the cabinet. Labour deals with health and safety.
I understand.
So-
The fact of the matter is that by virtue of what is being said, if it is that the committee is asked that the ministry consider relaying what is being said here, then I understand what you're putting forward, Member Brown. But I am taking note of the fact that what has been said by the JGRA is that these operations are illegal, one, and that this is not something new.
Chairman, I'm not one who subscribes to the view that inelegant questions are
Yes.
not appropriate.
Yes.
I may have stated inelegantly.
No, but that's not the issue.
What is important to
Yes.
me and to the rest of us in the country is safety first. And so I would like, if I can find, you have stated kind of more elegantly, and I will adopt the elegance of your statement, but that the Ministry of Labor, which is who we're relating to today, could whisper in or out of cabinet to the colleague minister responsible for energy and say, are you aware of what has come up in our committee or subcommittee, joint select committee of parliament about this illegality, and is there a government policy in relationship to the illegality and what action is going to be taken? Because it's important that we protect even before the law is passed. We be proactive on safety, and we put it out there, because certainly I'm not sure, we were not aware of this before, and I'm not sure the bill is going to address these people who may operate illegally. And so that is something that we have to wrap our mind around, and I suggest the best way to do it is to whisper, if not a little louder, to the Ministry of Energy and say, we have been told you have a report of this illegality. What have you done about it? It can't be, it brings me no comfort. And so I apologize for the inelegance of my proposal, and I adopt the elegance of yours, Chairman. Right?
Yeah,
but the outcome is what we're in concern of.
Well, some of your proposals are not normally elegant in nature, but they are seeking a specified objective. What we can record here, Chair, is that the JGRA has once again raised the concern. And I don't know if, when they raised it previously, it would have met the attention that would have been required. Now, the fact that we are here as a committee and it has been raised, then, and we view it as a possible imminent danger, then I believe the powers that be have a responsibility to treat with it. I don't think that coming from this committee today, it should fall on any deaf ears.
To be unfortunate.
Put another way, Chairman.
Yes.
Are these illegal, are these mobile operators cheating on the Factories Act? And would it be likely that having cheated on the Factory Act, they'll be cheating also on the new legislation we're developing? Again, in elegance, but I call it the way I see it here.
Chair, I would like to ask Mr. Mahon, because I know inspection and data is something that the ministry makes heavy weather on. And I don't know if you have it, but in terms of the inspections that are carried out on these gas stations on an annual basis, are there any, and I use a term that was made reference in the bill, dangerous occurrence. Are there any dangerous occurrence that would have been identified? In other words, if you keep doing the inspections, is there anything that comes up often that would be cause of concerns when you do these inspections?
Well, based on how the rhythm of how we do inspections is that once we do an inspection, a letter is sent with the findings and recommendations. Now, you have different types of hazards that we may come across, and as I had made mention earlier this morning, the gas stations that are petrol stations that we inspect are the ones that are involved in motor vehicle servicing and tire repairs. So once we inspect, and for example, as Mr. Edwards has mentioned, if we recognize that the compressors, there are issues surrounding the compressors, or if the motor vehicle hoists, there are issues surrounding that, then we would write the letter and give them some time within which to correct or remedy the issue that presents itself. So far, we have not had any major issues in terms of the petrol stations that we inspect, them making the steps to implement what we have asked for. we have not had any major issues where that is concerned. The one that we tend to many a times have problems with is the testing and examination of the pressure vessels, the air compressor, or the requirement as well for the lifting machines, for them to be examined and tested by a competent person at least once in a period of a year, or if there's any substantial repairs that may be done to these pieces of equipment. But if we don't get any, if there's no steps towards remedying these, then after, say, 2 to 3 inspections, then we would write them saying that if it is not corrected, then we will institute legal action. So we actually give them some time to have it remedied. If it is of condition that there is an imminent and immediate risk to the safety and health of the workers because the condition is of such that it can injure a worker, then we would move on that without waiting.
You made reference to tire pressure, and Mr. Chong, you know, not having the proper tire pressure on a motor vehicle can cause accident. You agree with me? Okay. Now, your retailers are the ones who provide the pump for the customers to have the, you know, the tires, when the tires are low. But I've seen situations where you go to a number of gas stations and that is not available. Is it a requirement? No, put it on the microphone.
It's not a requirement. It's more of a service to the customers. And unfortunately, there's a high maintenance cost to keeping these air pumps up. And what you find is that it is not where it needs to be in terms of enough air pumps available. You have motorists constantly abusing and stealing product, what you call them, air chucks, parts for the air compressors. And so it's something that needs to be improved in terms of the available air fill-up spots at gas stations.
And Chairman, I now have a concern, because if it's not a requirement as stipulated and it's seen as only a service, but in the absence of that service, it can lead to and may have led to accidents on our roadways. And then I beg the question, whose responsibility it would be in making that a requirement?
Mr. Chair,
yes.
To the ministry. Mr. Mahoney, when you have this station that you are entitled to assess on an annual basis, about how many you so assess and what is the compliance rate where that is concerned, A. And B, do you keep a record of the incidents in those establishments that you are entitled based on the Factories Act?
Well, I must say that the numbers have been dwindling because, as Mr. Chung has said, that some of the motor vehicle servicing that is done, it is being reduced. So we have many petrol stations who are just in the business of dispensing petrol and selling like food, oil and other things which would not let them fall within the remit of the Factories Act. So the numbers have been reduced over a period. In terms of accidents...
As we speak, what is that number? Ballpoint figure.
Pardon me?
Give me an idea of what the figure
So as
is.
we said, we have approximately 292 active ones in our database.
86% of what exists that you monitor now.
Right.
So how many do you monitor on an annual basis?
Well, we don't have the capacity to monitor every single one annually, but I don't have the figures as to say how much percentage.
50%, 40, 60.
Well, I couldn't give you that because they are just one of the many that fall within the 17 definitions of a factory that we inspect.
All right, so currently now, so you have a capacity problem.
Yes.
So when we pass this new bill into law, will it enhance the capacity? Because what we want is 100% inspection and 100% compliance.
Yes.
Unless it makes no sense. So we are moving from the Factories Act to this new law. Will it enhance the capacity to achieve what we want to achieve, unless it makes no sense?
Well, that is what I would say, that the ministry is cognizant of the fact that the current structure of the department is not sufficient to carry out this mandate, and the necessary arrangements would have been put in place to ensure that we have enough capacity.
So your lack of capacity is really human resources?
Yes.
More employees?
Yes.
Okay. So you wouldn't mind us increase the public service to enhance safety and efficiency?
Well, that is what we need. To follow up on your other question in terms of statistics, even though it is a requirement under Section 21 of the Factories Act about reportable accidents, which I explained this morning, where the worker is absent for more than 2 days of earning his wages, when we do our inspections, we actually ask the supervisor or the manager if there's any accidents. And if there's an accident that falls within that, then we would do an investigation. So as I said this morning, we have not had any instances, whether through reporting or through our inspections, that we have come across any major accidents or accidents that require us to do an investigation.
So, Mr. Chair, it's really important just listen to the ministry and the association. There's no clear-cut system for reporting and recording our accidents. So we're not able to track. And then it's clear from the government point of view that we are not able to be proactive in monitoring to ensure that we prevent. Because the objective is to prevent accidents, not to mop up after. So it's really a challenge in terms of the capacity, and therefore, if this bill will enhance the capacity, we need it like yesterday.
Yes, and Member Scaffer, I'll just add that the bill actually rolls out a new regime. That is why we would have, you see that OSH is now moving from within a department in the ministry to an authority. And on the matter of reporting, obligations are imposed under this new law on duty holders to report accidents or incidents as they arise. Yes.
Let me just add, though, through you are the minister also. Well, you are the junior minister, but probably should have been the minister. That's another matter, though.
Yes.
But let me just ensure, until this bill comes into law, whatever can be done to enhance the capacity, because we can't wait on the bill to bring about the revolution, because we live every day and we don't know when an accident may or will take place. So if we can look even under the current regime and enhance the capacity to prevent, because if we lose one life in an accident, that's too much. We want to ensure that we are able to be proactive. So even currently, we have to seek to enhance and some
questions for the JGRA, if you with your permission, Chair.
Yes, I'm just going to ask them one question, Member Brown, and then I will turn over to you. Mr. Chong, on the matter of unsafe working conditions, because I remember that one of the arguments that we heard coming out of the incident in Manchester is that there may have been the conditions of work may have become unsafe for some time, and they were ignored until that day when a major accident occurred. In circumstances where the conditions of work they become unsafe, is such a situation dealt with in the manual that you have highlighted? And if working conditions become unsafe, are workers entitled to stop working should the conditions of work become unsafe? Without being penalized, that is.
I'm not getting used to this. Right now, we would not expect our employee to do anything that is unsafe, and we could not have a member or advocate for a member that is forcing an employee to work in an unsafe condition. So even before this act, the JGRA is putting safety at the forefront for all employees of dealers or members. So no, the JGRA would not sit by and allow a member or to force an employee to work in an unsafe condition.
So does that mean that under your current system, your operating system, in the event that work becomes unsafe, can a worker cease to perform work without being penalized?
May I answer, Mr. Chair? The fact is that the gasoline workers are unionized, okay? They're represented by unions, and they have rights and responsibilities. And so, in that regards, a worker will come and tell you that his delegate says, well, given the condition, he can't work, and rightly so. But you raise an issue, Mr. Chair, about unsafe work, and unsafe work might mean many things. One of them that we have frequently in the gas stations is a pump leaking, and if a pump is leaking, there are ways to isolate it. The employees are trained to isolate it, so they themselves know, and perhaps will even do it without the management. So yes, there are procedures that governs unsafe work practices, because everybody knows that in a gas station you don't run certain kind of risks. But just to say to you, where the employees are concerned, they are unionized and they know their rights very well.
Very well, members.
So, sorry, you will go. So, you would support the section in the new bill which says the worker can stop working under circumstances where it's unsafe?
If it's unsafe, sir, we must, I mean, without hesitation.
I thank you on that. But let me ask you, the two, well, I had not gone into the Mandeville incident, but I'm aware that there are investigations taking place. Could you indicate to us whether you're aware those investigations have been completed and a report made to the relevant authority?
We have no information of the completion or the level of completion of this report.
Good. You had earlier.
So as the association, do you think it would be prudent to be asking for the outcome of such investigation?
We will be appraised as soon as it comes out. The person in Mandeville is also a member, so we will be updated once it comes out.
Mr. Edwards, you had mentioned the issue of private insurance, and that you had not gone, you did make reports to the NIS. Could I ask to what extent the employees are contributors to the NIS, to the National Insurance Scheme? You mentioned about 4,000 direct employees. To what extent are your employees contributors to the NIS program? Because you don't use them apparently.
We don't use the NIS?
Apart from the answer that accidents you don't report to NIS. So I'm trying to get a sense if the employees are members of the NIS scheme.
We make full compliance and encourage all our members to do so in terms of all statutory obligations.
Thank you very much. I'm so happy because so often in Jamaica people find a way to bypass the thing, but the JGRA, a trade union, honors and respect the laws of the country, including NIS.
Yes.
And the thing. And the final question I have, Chair, is public education is going to be key to any safety and thing. There are gas stations I go to from time to time, and the attendant would say to me, could you turn off your engine? There are signs also saying no cell phone usage. But I am sure whether turning off your engine or cell phone usage is honored more in the breach than in the compliance. What has been the reaction to your efforts to get the public to be safe? Turn off your engine, turn off your cell phone. What has it been like for your employees and you as managers and owners to get compliance with what is a common sense safety?
Yes. It is a difficult thing to control, but we train our employees to try and use the right and soft approach to get it across. Because you will be talking to someone about cell phone use, and if you're not careful, somebody would be close by maybe wanting to light something to smoke. It is a difficult situation, and it is even to the point of being frustrating to some of the forecourt employees. But we still have to enforce it.
I was wondering if a soft answer turn it away rat was the approach being adopted. Because some now say, spoil the child, don't use the rat. But do you think there should be criminal sanctions for these breaches?
Yes, it becomes a police matter. I think it's something that could be considered.
I'd like to add something too, that coming out of the incident in Mandeville, we at the JGRA have realized that there needs to be more done in terms of educating the public, because in the videos it showed, some cell phone use and certain things, and that obviously cannot be safe. And so we are still planning to go on an education campaign for the public, because as Mr. Edwards has said, a lot of times we're met with harsh resistance for safety for the own good of the pedestrians and the motorists. Our staff are sometimes verbally abused because they're asking them to do simple safety things like turn off your engines, don't smoke, no cell phone use, those things. So obviously we have a misunderstanding there that we think that all stakeholders need to come together and educate the public that, look, this is not a taxi stand for 100 people to congregate. The attendant cannot control the environment or monitor safe use when you have so many people congregating. But unfortunately, a lot of in-town stations become informal taxi stands. And this is a perennial problem that the JGRA has been trying to deal with for a long time. We've gotten sporadic help from the JCF from time to time, but it's not consistent and not enough. It's woefully inadequate, because as the police will come and clear up a gas station, and before the police leave, they all enter back, and it is totally congested. If you look at some gas stations in the corporate area and their level of congestions, if that situation in Mandeville happened here, there's no telling of how many persons would have been seriously injured. So it's something that the JGRA will continue on its path to embark on a massive education campaign. As you will all appreciate that come March of this year, COVID took over our whole lives, everybody's lives, and put everything on a back burner, because we were also concerned with the safety of COVID on our staff and our businesses. But this is something that we're very aware of, and we agree with you, Mr. Brown.
Yes.
There may be other questions. I want to thank the JGRA for coming. It's not the intention of this committee to be hostile, if notwithstanding the incident that caused us to say, let's bring them in. We really want to thank you for what you have shared with us, your support, as always, over many decades for safety we urge you to look at the legislation because there's some change coming. For example, the chairman pointed out personal protective equipment has to be paid for by the employer, and it can't be shared with the worker, and there's another one too. So we really want to thank you, and I want to say personally, continue the good work you're doing as entrepreneurs in advancing the economy of the country. Those 4,000 and 2,000 indirect employees means a lot to this economy, and we thank you. And this is why I'm prepared to go on record to say, every time I see the abuse of you and your members by the marketing companies who get a free ride, I am hoping that someday we can find the courage to put legislation in place to equal the playing field, and that the inequality that exists now, successive governments have missed the opportunity to stand up for you, mainly Jamaicans, who have kept this going over the decades. And I really, really want to say that we owe it to you. We owe it to you to do something to change the inequity in the relationship between the marketing companies and the retailers. I say no more. I hope one day I'll be in a position to influence legislation in that direction.
Yes, Member Skipper.
Mr. Chair, just quickly, I just want to encourage the association. You say you are seeking legal advice and will give your comments on the bill shortly, but the committee has been going for a time now, and we are at the stage where your comments will be critical. I just want to say, please get that legal advice going quickly, because this bill will revolutionize the workplace, and your industry naturally will be impacted on it. So for your own benefit, it's important, if you have not yet really done so, to have your team look at the critical provisions in the bill, because when it becomes law, it will impact in a severe way and enhance safety and health at the workplace. So it's critical. That's a personal encouragement.
Just to say,
Yes,
through you, Mr. Chair.
Once the JGRA have that opportunity, maybe they can utilize this avenue to incorporate any recommendations that you may deem fit to improve the operations of the industry.
Before our President reply,
Yes.
through you, Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Chair.
a simple question. Have any of the marketing companies or the Marketing Company Association been invited to review the act, the pending act?
Well, what I will say, sir, is that the notices went out for stakeholder feedback. It was noticed to the world at large. It was published in our major newspapers. I think it was done more than once, too. So through that medium, we invited feedback from just about any and everybody. The specific request, however, as was stated earlier, was made of the JGRA by virtue of that single incident that we saw in Manchester, in Mandeville. So direct answer, the general notices went out. No specific request was made of the marketing companies. All right?
Chairman, I was surprised that there's 21 of them. I just don't remember about 2 or 3 of them dominating the market, but we know here there's 21. We're hearing from Mr. Philip Chung that they have an association. Maybe as a last minute ditch, we could invite them because they are gatherers of safety information, which may be helpful. They may or may not come, but I certainly, before we close shop, would give them an opportunity. I've made some strong comments against them. I'd love them to get a chance to respond to. I'm a natural justice man, and I will save that.
Maybe like
I'd like to point out, as a follow-up to the question, that there is a move for the marketing companies to operate their own service stations, not wholly and solely. We have no idea of their intent or their extent, but they do operate quite a number of their own service stations. They do employ workers. I would like to say that they abide by, as Mr. Edwards had stated before, they abide by some of the benefits of the JGRA, but by far not all.
Member Gillies.
I raised the question earlier on about the LPG industry, and I have heard about even the same marketing companies that they would have been refurbishing cylinders, and I question who would be somehow inspecting those cylinders if that were true. And maybe in order to get them here, the Parliament could state from this committee that having heard from the retailers, the Gasoline Retailers Association, it would be helpful to hear their comments and views, if any, around this proposed legislation. But we'd like to hear from them also.
All right. I've heard from you, members of the committee. Certainly, one thing we know is whether or not they appear before this committee, this act certainly will bind them. And it is unfortunate that it would have taken the incident in Mandeville or even a specific request from this committee to ignite the interest of such an important grouping that we know will be impacted by this bit of legislation. But I've heard the comments from members, and certainly before we leave here today, we will finalize how we will treat with the invitation of the marketing groups. But for you, Mr. Chung, and your members, I want to thank you for coming before this committee. Certainly your attendance has been very beneficial. You have shared useful data with this committee. We have heard your responses, and certainly it forms part of the consideration of this committee as we go through the bill as a whole. Again, I know Member Skeffrey in particular would have urged you to go through the provisions of this bill. It is in fact game-changing. It will introduce a new norm. There are provisions in the bill that may involve financial considerations from your end. So apart from the safety and health requirements, there may be certain provisions that in order for you to fulfill the requirements of this new law will involve, an expense on the part of the employer. And I can specifically refer to the personal protective gears. As you have so highlighted, that the norm within the industry now is for the worker to bear the cost. And under this bill, we are saying that this must be provided at no cost to the worker. But thank you again for coming, and we await your comments, your feedback on the legislation. So that being said, you, Mr. Chung, I do not know if you have a reply, but if not, you are released along with your members.
Just to say, Mr. Chairman, thank you for having us. It's our pleasure to be here today, and members of the committee, continue the good work and keep working to keep employees and Jamaicans safe. So you will be hearing from us very shortly.
Very well, sir. The It's now 3:45. I believe we should. Our next item on the agenda is any other business and date of the next meeting. I know coming out of this, members, the suggestion is that we invite the marketing companies. I do not know the challenge for me, which is what you will have to indicate. It has been said that there are about 21 marketing companies. Is there an association representing the marketing companies for us to invite, or is it that, members, you expect that we're going to invite the 21? Is there an association?
Chung said there was, so we could quietly ask and get the detail of their addresses, their address and so forth.
So the clerk is making the notes. We just need to confirm whether there is, in fact, that association. And if so, the invitation will go to them. But yes?
Is that, I just want to understand if that concludes the list of entities that, because I remember the Household Workers Association.
So they are to appear before us. They have asked for some more time. So we continue to have our discussions with them, and as soon as they have confirmed that date available.
And that's a list, because, and the fact that, you know, if you're going to be forced to wear clothes, for argument's sake, you would want to understand how it fit. So they would have had the opportunity, sir, to have appeared and made their submissions.
Chair,
Yes, member. Yes.
just following on my colleague's point, I don't want to give additional work to Mrs. Celia Brown, but if we could just extract from the bill the areas that address the domestic helpers, or the ministry.
So I'm sure the ministry can
just
yes.
share that with them, so it make it a little easier, given what Senator
Well, I don't.
Make some take workers. Just a order.
Member Brown, that could be. Yes, Mr. Baker.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. We both weren't here last week, but we're just concerned whether or not when you went through the definition for biological agent, there's on page 4 of the bill that we recommend that we have bacteria, viruses, fungi, parasites. Those are all biological agents, but rickettsian, so they are bacteria in themselves.
We had a lengthy discussion around that, and we were quite sorry that you weren't here.
Yeah, right. So
I think we may have accepted the ministry's response, but Mr. Baker to look at
can
the
they,
subject.
can they be given this section of answer that dealt with that?
Yes,
And
but
then
I
we take
think
the comment,
I think Member Brown, what Mr. Baker, I think the committee accepted the response the ministry gave, but Mr. Baker is now introducing something that would not have been before the ministry or even the committee.
What I hear him saying is that some of the terms they're using are redundant.
That is
And
so.
so maybe, and if that is so,
Yes.
I certainly didn't take that into account.
That's the
coming
point.
to my decision.
That is the point. And by looking at the ministry's response, I know it was never part of their contemplation. So what we will do on the next occasion, the ministry will respond to that comment from you, Ministry of Health. So perhaps in a clear way, Mr. Mahon, you should have an appreciation as to the concern raised by the Ministry of Health so that we can respond on the next occasion. The date for the next meeting, members, no, Parliament is on recess, but I am reminded that notwithstanding Parliament being on recess, the committee can still proceed. So members, yes, we're proposing that on Monday the 3rd, we have our, yes, it's a Monday, yes, so what I and I hear I hear you, Member Skeffrey. Since there may be greater time availability in terms of very few committees of Parliament will be sitting, if any. If it is that we could have condensed sittings, then perhaps it will help us instead of having to come here Monday after Monday after Monday. If we could do perhaps the back-to-back sittings, then it may help us during the period of August. So at this time, we may need to decide, committee members, the way forward, because we understand that August is
Am I hearing it to be proposing a retreat?
Exactly, that's what I'm proposing, Member Brown. So, yes.
I want to take into consideration, though, it is usual for Parliament to go on a recess, and that gives the staff members a little break and a reprieve from some of us. And so you may want to take that into consideration.
Certainly,
it's the only break that they get sometimes.
Certainly, I have members, but as...
And that might be an occupational hazard to enforce.
Well, yes, I see. I've heard all the comments. But what I'm asking members, and ultimately it boils down to the committee's position. I mean, if it is that we could do a 3-day sitting sometime during the month of August, then we would have no further meetings for the month of August. I know you are going overseas. No. So we will not fix a date, but members, I ask you to consider a 3-day sitting for sometime during the month of August. As of next week, we will try to canvass a date among the members as to a convenient time. No, well, I am. You know, the comment is specifically directed to the committee members for now. Yes. Yeah, I know. It says, yes. So, yeah.
The first few weeks of August, might be a little challenge. As you get closer to September, like the last week. But if the first 1 week alone is holiday.
So you change your plans for August? From Belmont Road?
Let me turn off the mic.
I've been prepared from last year. So we will adjourn without fixing a date, but with the understanding that we are seeking to have a 3-day sitting during the month of August at a time to be agreed. Certainly not. You do that every day. All right, so there be no further business. This meeting is adjourned for a date to be fixed. So Yes, moved by member Scarfree,
I
second
also
by...
wish all the staff members and the technical team happy independence, happy
Happy holidays. We
happy
have
emancipation on the staff.
emancipation and we have independence. Emancipation. I can't say happy holidays because I know that especially, the staff of the ministry, and I can imagine the chambers, OPC and legal reform. I know they have a heavy workload. And you to Mr. Bakers. Yes, I know that, the work is plentiful. All right, so happy holidays, everyone. This meeting is now adjourned.
We can be. We must